data democratization. Etienne?
Yes.
Yeah, my grade 12 French. From Decoded, so you're going to
Correct.
talk about that. Yes, and I have heard that term many times, and I still don't understand it, so hopefully after this...
Democratization?
Yeah.
You know, for a French person, it's a hard word to say in English, so I'll do my
So
best.
you decided to speak about it. All right. Thank you, Etienne.
Thank you. So good morning. I'm Etienne Pelletier. I'm based in Montreal. I've been in the data space for 25 years. I work for Decoded. You know what? I'm not going to do a technical conversation this morning. Chris, in the healthcare, public health, did it for me, so I'm super happy. In fact, what we do is pretty much what he explained. So I help people break silos, share data in a governed way, and make it easy for people to work with data. One thing I like, though, from his presentation, I don't know if you remember, but one of the last slides, there was just a small point about, it's all about people. So that's the angle that I decided to take this morning. It's talk about people, data democratization, but from a people's perspective. So, is this working? Yep. I hope everyone here understands the concept of data democratization. Maybe not, right? It's really about, again, enabling people to use more data. So to create a data culture in your organization so that people use more data when they take decisions. Enabling that is very challenging for all the technical reasons we heard this morning. But what's the key measure of success of a data democratization strategy, you think? Is it, the number of APIs? Is it how much it costs? Is it, the data sources that are available? It's not that, right? It's really about how many people start working with more data. It's the, user adoption that is considered the most important success metric for a data strategy. And how do you drive adoption? If you search online or if you ask ChatGPT, the answer will always be the same. It's about the experience that you give to people. So how do we provide great experiences for all your data people is what I'm going to talk about today. So why do we work with data? It's to improve performance indicators, it's to reduce costs, to better manage risk, right? But in the end, it's really, it's humans working with data products, data sets, and who are the people working with data? So if you want to have a successful strategy, you need to understand who in the end are going to be your end users, right? So you have the line of business people, as an example, that will work with Power BI or Tableau. These people will expect pre-built reports, they want something pre-crunch, and also they want to make sure that if two people come in the same room, they'll have the same numbers. And that's the opposite of your data science team that do machine learning and AI. These people want to have the raw data, they want to find this golden nugget that nobody has found before. So it's the opposite of the line of business. Data stewards, who are in charge of making sure that privacy rules are enforced, that the right data is shared with the right people. You might have application developer people. Those people don't want to worry about what is a citizen document. I just want to be given a web service, as an example. And then you have the IT people in charge of making sure everyone else can do their job, efficiently. So I used to stop there when I introduced the key personas, around data. But then after talking with so many people, I realized I'm missing 3 other personas. So when I talk, I like to share my personal life. So this is I'm sorry, before I go there, the challenge those people face, right? It's the spaghetti. It's what Chris explained this morning. It is challenging to work with all these kinds of data sources, right? And managing governance, and you have on-premise data, you have on the cloud, you have legacy, web services, partner data. It's just challenging to break the silos and to enable people to start sharing data, right? So the idea is, how do we remove that spaghetti and make it easy for people to work with data? And that's where you have the concept of data lakes and virtualization to enable access to data. But the people I just mentioned, they're kind of tech savvy, they can navigate their way throughout all these data sources, probably people you work with. But then, that other persona I was about to mention is my mother, right? We all have a colleague who's like my mother, non-technical, very respected, maybe a bit scary to share data and try new technology. So as you plan your data strategy, you have to account for that kind of persona as well, right? So what experience will you give to that person? And that's where generative AI can help. You can ask, plain natural language questions. That's perfectly suited for my mother. Then last week I was at a conference and someone else shared a story and I thought, oh, that's another persona I've been missing. So I'll talk about my son. The invincible college graduate, he thinks he knows it all. The truth is, he doesn't know business processes, doesn't know the data infrastructure. And the worst is that he will write SQL queries that will destroy the environment, right? So what experience are you giving to that kind of new hire? You want him to be able to get started on the job as quickly as possible and maybe have a tool that will rewrite bad SQL queries, which is what we do, by the way, amongst other things. So it's another example of personas that you have to account for as you plan your strategy. And the last one, whether we like it or not, is something that we'll start seeing more and more. It's the AI agent, right? So it's something that will be there that will help all the other personas do their work better. So how do you enable your AI agent to be up and running in 3 months instead of 3 years? It's doable. You just need the right set of mindset and technologies, basically. So these are just examples of people and AI agent that you have to think about as you plan your data strategy. So there's no point in doing any form of data strategy if data cannot be used by people. So this is why I love so much this quote. If you don't know Star Trek, it's a sci-fi TV show, but one of my customers once said, we translated Klingon to business language. It's an alien language. And he was so right. What if you said, oh, you know what, I've done my data strategy, all the data is there, please help yourselves, but it's just a bunch of relational tables. People won't be able to use that in their day-to-day work, right? So that's where we introduce the concept of a semantic model. Semantic means giving sense to something. So imagine this data versus that data. It's the same data, it's just reformatted in a way that people can use it. So for me, in my 25 years experience, if you ask me what's the most important thing of a data strategy, it's this. It's to ensure that your people will be able to use the data, basically. So the semantic model is the foundation. And then from there, where do you start? Well, that's where you can start thinking about the 4 pillars of data democratization. So I have one slide for each of those pillars, but basically governance, we discussed this morning, literacy, which was just introduced or brought up in the panel just before, then access to data, and finally, again, as discussed this morning in the health session, sharing and breaking silos and everything, right? All of that with the proper semantic model is all you need for a good data strategy. So let's get started, right? So data governance, Bill 27, anyone, privacy rules, GDPR in Europe, it's getting more and more traction. So these are examples of fields that need to be protected. We all understand why, protecting sensitive data and everything. So this is called doing classification. So there are great tools like Microsoft Purview, Calibra, Data Sentinel that will basically scan all your data sources and classify that and then create labels. Is it confidential data? Is it restricted, internal use, public, and all of that? So that's the foundation of governance. Governance goes beyond that, obviously, right? So yes, you have classifications, but you also have the concept of ownership. Who's in charge of a specific data product? Who's the steward for that? And then how that person would be in charge of approving access request to that specific data product. That person could also be in charge of ensuring data quality, completeness, maybe building a business glossary so that people can understand better what this data is about. So data governance is one element. of a a good data democratization strategy, but it's always in the context of what experience you want to give to the data steward. If you want that person on its own as a self-service, with a self-service tool to enforce the privacy policies, is very different from a data steward having to depend on a busy IT team who has a ton of other priorities, to enforce the privacy policy. So just about, again, it's all a question of what experience you want to give to your data stewards. Then the end users, data literacy. There's no point in giving access to Power BI and machine learning tools if people don't know the data that's available to them. That's what that data literacy is about. So we'll do an exercise. We'll close your eyes and raise your right arm. But close your eyes seriously and think about when you shop on Amazon. What is the experience that you have? You have searching and browsing and discoveries and categories. You have reviews and stars. You have thumbs up, thumbs down. You have recommendations. That's exactly the same kind of data experience you want to give to your end users. And through a data catalog that allows people to explore, discover, share data, promote, and so on, right? So the concept of literacy, again, is to give an experience so that people will understand the data that's available to them. And obviously, right, that is done through that governance layer we just introduced to make sure that people only have access to the data they're supposed to have access to. The next step is where I've seen most often a breach in the self-service experience. I mean, giving access to that metadata catalog where you can see all your data sources and your data sets, that's pretty easy to do to some extent. But when it's time to start working with the data, what if you have data in Oracle and on Azure and maybe at a partner site and so on, right? That's where it's really hard to provide a self-service experience so that people can start working like minutes after being approved to a data set. They can start using it, whether it's in Oracle or maybe in a legacy environment, right? So that concept of a data catalog, like the Amazon catalog, but imagine if you could have what you purchase just instantly. That's the beauty of data virtualization, which again is what we do. But the point is that you enable people to have access to the data independently of where it is, right? You don't have to bring all the data first in one central warehouse. Instead, you just get it where it lives. So the idea here is to offer that self-service data access to the end users. And remember, right, that experience is what's key to adoption. If people have to chase an Oracle administrator for 3 hours and wait for a response, it's not the same as just instantly accessing your data. And the fourth element of the data democratization, right, is kind of a bit more sophisticated. We discussed it this morning, which is the concept of a data mesh. So how do you enable the data owners to create data products, put them on the menu, and govern them and share them with their colleagues? And the diagram on the right side was, the original version was actually with healthcare elements. That I did it for some hospital groups where you had clinical data and research data and hospital administration data. Everybody in the room, right, or at a hospital understands the importance of sharing data, but everybody's also reluctant to do it because you don't know what's going to happen next with your data. So imagine if instead you were given the control over your data. You could say, oh, this field has to be masked. This one will be encrypted. And I own it, and I'll ensure it's enforced before I share my data. So that's the concept of the data mesh. It's to decentralize the creation of data products and sharing. And of course, you don't do that for all the data, right? So you want your central data team to be in charge of maybe the most strategic data products. But in some cases, you want to delegate the management of the data to your business people because they're the experts. They know what needs to be shared, not shared, and so on. So that's, again, the kind of experience you want to give to your people so that they feel empowered with their data instead of just thinking, oh, I have to rely on that central data team that I don't trust, maybe. So all that I just explained, right, is kind of what we do. Again, I didn't want this to be a technology conversation, but though we have a data platform that complements Microsoft Fabric and Purview and Snowflake and all the other tools, we serve the data to the end users, kind of like the Amazon catalog, as well as with APIs for the more technical people. And we make that possible by getting the data where it lives, instead of having to wait for years for all the data to be moved into a central warehouse. That was the technical part. So if you have questions, you can, obviously come at the booth and ask for more information. But the point I wanted to make, though, is that one of the key experience that we also help enable, which is the trendy topic, is Gen AI, which was, again, just discussed. Generative AI enabled by large language models that are trained on the internet, right? There's a ton of use cases where those could be applied, and these are just examples, but for every ministry, if you ask ChatGPT, it will give you like 10 examples of where generative AI could be used. Now, I assume everyone's kind of familiar with this. I use ChatGPT every day. It's super helpful, to find errors in code, as an example. But who would trust ChatGPT for a critical business decision? I'll ask, how many people are right now waiting in line for a passport, request application, and should I send more people on the ground for better service, right? I don't think anyone here would raise their hands. We do not trust Gen AI because one of the main reasons is it's subject to hallucinations. Again, if you're not familiar with that, I'll let you investigate. But the point is that, I've asked questions and I was given completely stupid answers, basically, from ChatGPT. The reason because of that, it's the way it works. It's based on vector databases, and that what makes it bad, and it's not totally trustable. It works super well for a lot of use cases, but not for when it's time to use your data. I mean, ChatGPT was trained on the internet. It was not trained on your internal data, and you don't want it to use your data. But there's a way, basically, to extend ChatGPT with your own data in a governed, secured manner. So that's called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. Maybe you've heard about that concept, maybe not. But basically, the buzzword is that you ground your language models with your internal private data. So you don't send it on the web. It's more like you combine your data with ChatGPT's power. Now, the problem that you'll face if you search on the web for RAG, right, is what, as an example, Microsoft will say is, take all your data, put it in the vector database, which is exactly the same technology as ChatGPT, and we'll find answer in your data. But you're still stuck with that problem of hallucinations, right, that is related to vector database. So another way to approach that problem, and that's where we come in, right, is you bridge your hard data that lives in all your data sources, internal, external, on-premise, on the cloud, and you use your hard data with ChatGPT's power. So basically, if I ask a natural language question, how many people are, in the hospital right now, that will be translated into SQL. And Decoded, because it has access to all the data sources, will then execute the SQL, retrieve the actual answer from the live system, maybe real-time data, or combine multiple sources, and that will be used to give an answer that can be trusted. It's very different from using vector database over your own data, because when you take data and you put it on a vector database, it kind of it transforms the way the data is structured, and therefore you never know if you're hitting the right number. So I wanted to talk about that because it's part of the experience, right? If you want my mother to have access to data, using Gen AI is a great way to do that. She could just ask a question and be given a number, but you want that answer to be trustable, obviously, right? And that's where data-driven RAG comes in. So, yeah, so just as a conclusion, right, data-driven makes it possible to have trusted answers. So as we see more and more adoption of that kind of technology and approach with Gen AI, I think we'll see organizations adopting Gen AI in situations where you have to trust the answers and, for more critical business decisions. So coming back to the data democratization strategy, right? What Chris explained this morning, it's a journey. Remember my question is, he talked about the proof of concept, but what's next? So as you want to enable people or an AI agent to have access to more data, instead of just looking at the technical architecture, if you want to drive adoption, you have to think about the experience. So what is the experience you want all your personas to have? Right? So I was talking with someone from a hospital group in North Ontario last week, and the word she said is the operating model. Right? She had a technology roadmap, and she also had an operating model, which was basically how would people work together as they had access to more and more data. And I said, you know what? Call me back when you're done with your operating model, because that's the most important piece, right? So think about it in your phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of your journey. For each of these personas, what's the experience you want to give them, right? So it could be, I want to give access to a data catalog. Maybe not all the data as a starting point. Maybe it's just going to be raw data. It doesn't matter. It's just to set expectations with people. I'll start with this. In 6 months, you'll have something else, and then next year we'll give you that. But it's the concept of that journey, and it's not a technology roadmap. Again, it's an experience roadmap. And that, by doing this, it forces you to work with people, get their buy-in, their support, set the right level of expectations, and then hopefully that will drive higher adoption, which is the number one success metric, right? And so if you're looking for ideas of what this experience could be, we've created a white paper that explains for each persona what are the top success metrics. So I invite you to have a look. It's really interesting. I learned a lot of things myself. So whether you're a CIO, an IT manager, a data analyst, what should you be considering? And it can give you ideas or inspiration to build this kind of experience roadmap for your end users. So that's what I wanted to share today, the importance of the user experience versus the technical architecture in a overall data democratization strategy. Thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot actually. Sorry. You just said examples of real life experiences. I'm so excited. I have the ideas all around. So, we work with the UK government, and, this is just a good example of what they were able to achieve. You know what? I don't think they had those success factors in mind when they started. But thanks to data virtualization, they were able to, deploy extremely quickly their new, digital services and everything. But the point, again, my suggestion, my recommendation is use these as examples. Those could be what you have in mind when you start your data project. I want answers to be able to be answered 5 times faster. And if you have that in mind, you'll find the right technology that will make it possible, instead of looking at technology and figure out what you can do with it. So it's the idea. So as a conclusion, you don't know Denodo probably, but a lot of companies know us. We've been in the market for 25 years. We work with governments and health ministries and immigration ministries and all around the place, the world, as well as with a ton of large corporations. So if you like more information about data virtualization, how we help break silos, you're welcome to join us for a conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Etienne. We do have time for a few questions. We have 5 minutes. So any questions for Etienne? There. I think I finally do have an idea of what this long word actually means. That just means making it available to everybody. So thank you very much. And there, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right.